Padmasri, please go.
Namaste. Are we ready? Namaste and welcome everybody to this book launch of ours on behalf of INDICA USA. We welcome you to this book launch. We are privileged to have Padmasri Meenakshi Jain ji, who was the inspiration behind this anthology, to be with us and to help us launch this book, and also say a few words of wisdom and blessings to all of us. So welcome Meenakshi ji, and
thank you.
Welcome all the authors who are here, and welcome all viewers who are joining us from all across the world. So welcome. And as we do always, we start all our events with an invocation. And for that, I invite Nishant Limbachia ji, who is one of our co-coordinators in the USA. The third one, Ram, he is not with us today. He is involved in other event that we are co-sponsoring in a local mandir here. So I invite Nishant ji to lead us in a prayer.
Dhanyawad Autan Spai. Welcome everyone. Namaste Meenakshi ji and all the authors. I will start with a short prayer. It's one of my favorites to dedicate to Matrubhumi. And the topic today is, destruction and desecration, and we're talking about that, or book on that. So hopefully Matrubhumi will give us enough strength to overcome all that negativity and destruction. So I'll start. Quick invocation. Ratnakara Dhautya Padam Himalaya Kiritinim Brahma Raj Rishi Ratnatyam Vande Bharat Mata. Dhanyawad. Thank you.
Thank you, Nishant bhai. Wonderful prayer. We were supposed to be joined by our founder, Shri Hari Kiranji, but he had to go on a trip, so he is traveling right now. So I will be doing the part he was supposed to do, which is a quick, crisp introduction of what we do here in INDICA. So we are a non-traditional university for traditional knowledge. We seek to build a global renaissance based on Indic civilizational thought. We are pursuing a multidimensional strategy across time, space, and cause by establishing centers of excellence, transforming intellectuals, and building an ecosystem. We offer grants and scholarships for individuals in pursuit and the spread of Indic knowledge. We build partnerships and alliances with universities, schools, colleges, research institutions, NGOs, media, etc. We have several platforms that promote and deliver Indic content, services, and experiences. We conduct offline and online courses. We guide research on select topics through our fellowship programs. We publish books like this one by academics and public intellectuals across the genres. We conduct events such as this one, conferences, both online and in person. We were, due to COVID, we were offline. We were online for several months, but now we will be starting with one in July with the weekend with wisdom with Professor Subhash Kak here in Chicago. We'll give you more information towards the end of this program. Seminars, workshops, and talks through our growing global network of chapters. In the USA, we are a not-for-profit organization, and all contributions are tax exempt. Please visit our website and explore various social media channels. And please be involved and reach out to us with your feedbacks and questions and comments. With that, I would like to introduce now Pranshu Saxena ji, who will be the moderator for this session. But before, he's also one of the authors of this anthology. So Pranshu ji, please welcome and take it from here, please. And before he does, one quick comment about the housekeepings. If you have any questions throughout this launch, you can share it in the chat, and we'll try to take those questions towards the end of the program. So, Pranshuji.
Yeah, namaste. So so welcome to the book launch for Flight of Deities, an anthology of desecration and devotion. And so basically we will go with all the authors, and I basically, chose the simplest route possible as the chapters are printed in the book.
Yes.
So we will start off with Surela. Yeah.
No, Pranshuji, Meenakshi ji will do
sorry.
the launch. So invite, so.
No, so
I do apologize.
Are we doing the book launch first?
Yes, let's do the book launch. First,
yeah.
Sorry. So book launch, and then Meenakshi ji will speak something, and then we'll go through the authors. Okay.
So I've got the book in my hand.
Everybody, please pick up your book. And so, okay.
Sorry, I don't have my copy with me. I'm at my hostel and my book is with my parents.
Doesn't matter.
All right. We have enough on your behalf.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then few words from Meenakshi ji, and then we'll go through the authors.
Actually, when I wrote my book with the same title, I was totally amazed at the kind of response that I got from the readers. I just wrote it because I was so agonized by the fate of our sacred structures and sacred deities. And I knew Sitaram Goel very well. He was a family friend, and his 2 volumes, Hindu Temples, What Happened to Them, is a very detailed account and listing of the temples. But as a reader, I found that one possible shortcoming in those listing was that it was just listing that this temple was destroyed, this temple was destroyed, whereas, the human story behind each destruction was something that needed to be told. And this is absolutely an amazing facet of our medieval Indian history, that, not kings or princes, ordinary devotees, bhakts, they risked their lives, the challenges they took to protect their deity. In the medieval period, the temples had become quite big structures. There was no way that those temples could be protected by either the temple priest or the devotees without any weapons or any means of resistance. So in each case that I studied, the deity, the priest or the bhakts ran away with what was the most precious thing for them in the temple, and that was the deity. And I found, to my amazement, the amount of evidence that is there to trace the journey of these deities. Because I was not interested in writing a multi-volume study, because it was so heartbreaking to write even this 1 volume. I said, I cannot bear the agony of writing many volumes. So, but my study showed me that for each region of India, there was a plethora of evidence to narrate the story of each temple and the deity in that temple. And we say that the Indians are an unhistorical people. But it is amazing that in the medieval period, how much documentation they left behind. You know, the first epigraphic evidence that we have of an attack on a temple is by Jayachand. We've all heard Jayachand of Kannauj. His nephew was the ruler in a place near Ajmer. So, some time ago, when archaeologists were digging up that place, they found an inscription. And that inscription says that, you know, this king, he had performed this Chandi Yagya with his Purohit, but then he heard of the Malechas. And he says, the priest, the king is saying, with heavy heart, Ma Durga, please forgive me. I have to bury you. Instead of instating you in a temple, I have to bury you for your own safety. And I promise that when things become better, I will reinstate you in a shrine worthy of you. At that time, when this inscription was made, engraved, nobody imagined that the terror would last for so long. So we found the inscription. That inscription was embedded in a wall, and that was indicating the place where the Durga image is buried. You know, the placement of the inscription was an indication that the image is here. But the unfortunate thing is that we could not find the image, but we found that inscription. And then this intrigued me, and I started looking at so many stories. I'll just give you one or two examples. That, you know, Shri Ranganath temple, the deity was taken away by the temple priest, and he ran from here, there, forests. Finally, they reached Kerala. When they reached Kerala, they were shocked to know that the priests of so many temples had also come to Kerala with the deities, because they thought Kerala is too far away for the Sultanate armies to attack. And then how from Kerala that Murti reached Tirupati, because Tirupati was also Vishnu temple. And when you go to Tirupati, you will find that there's a small shrine before you reach Balaji, and it is called Rang Mandap. That is the mandap that was created for Shri Ranganath. And the temple histories are such an amazing source of information. We have just not looked at them. And the temple history says that, you know, once a local person, he just came to have darshan of Balaji. He did not know Shri Ranganath was here because there was no radio. He had just disappeared. And when he came to Tirupati, he was shocked that Balaji's, my deity, Shri Ranganath is here. So he told the priests at Tirupati, this is from my area, can I take him back? So they said, you take him back. He took him back to Shri Ranganath, and on the temple wall, he engraved an inscription, which is still there, that I'm the one who brought back Lord from Tirupati on this date. There are such a huge amount of evidence. Now the thing is that, you know, the evidence is too overwhelming. There is evidence of the Narsimha Murti from Multan. You know, the Multan, there was the temple where the Narsimha comes out. And that Murti is supposed to have reached Pune. And from Pune, it came to Banaras. And there is a written record in Marathi, which describes this journey. So, you know, I was discussing this with many people. It is not the job of one person, because it requires many, many involved and concerned people. All of you, I've read all your essays with great admiration and interest, because, you know, you have related to the subject. You have not only just treated it as a subject, but you've, you know, identified with it. The pathos and the tragedy of that time you have conveyed so well. And you've also tried to bring the story to the modern period where you could. For example, there is one person who talked about Professor Nagaswamy. Professor Nagaswamy just died a year ago. So, the reader, and then I was so happy that, you mentioned Professor Nagaswamy, because it's been sterling role that he has played in this. He was the one who traced the journey of the Natraj from the Tamil area, how it was sold to a smuggler, reached London. And Professor Nagaswamy was called by the court in London to testify. They said, how can you tell us that it is from there? And his statements over there, the English judge said that I bow to your knowledge. And he said the other people who were there, they were experts. But he told those people that you're expert, but for this gentleman, it's a living deity for him. And his passion and his devotion and his knowledge of all this, I have to bow to his wisdom and judgment, and I hand over the Pathar Natraj back to India because of him. So, all these little things that I found in all your accounts, each account was so well written and so, thought out, well constructed. That image that a person was trying to find, and he loses his mental balance, because he's trying to find that archaeologist, that story. So what I feel that, you have shown that you have it in you to take this a step forward. I feel that and the stories must be told in the regional languages, because the audience, I write in English because that is my handicap, but the range of an English writer is very limited. If like Anish is here, he has done so much work on Maratha history. There will be stories like this from certain regions. If he can collect them, and I'm sure he knows Marathi, and because we have to make people aware. Our task is to spread awareness among the people, among ordinary. We are not interested in academics and scholars because they will not be educated, you see. So we are interested in creating a civilizational awareness of our heritage among the people at large. So it is my suggestion, because each story has been so well done. I was really impressed. If you feel that, if you're from Andhra, for example, I'm just giving an example. If you can collect, and the stories are easily available, if you can collect some of these stories and write them, or invite people of your, circle to write small stories on that region and publish in the local languages, you will be doing such an important role you'll be playing in we are all here for the regeneration of our civilization. And this is my humble suggestion, if it's possible. Or, if you can't find, you can create small videos. Small videos giving the story of a particular temple. Or there are yatras, these yatras. The yatras were stopped at a particular time because it was very unsafe in the medieval period. Then they were resumed in the 18th century. Many of the routes of those yatras had been forgotten. How did they reconstruct the routes of those yatras? It is such a rich heritage waiting to be discovered. And I have to say that each one of you did a remarkable job. I don't know how you took out time, read up, and did this, but this is my suggestion, that if any of you think it's worthwhile, you can make videos. Or, I went to a university in Coimbatore. So there the students were telling me, ma'am, for the last 2-3 weeks, we are having this pilgrimage session and people are going on foot every day in the morning to a particular place. So I said, all of you have your mobiles. This is record. You can record this. This will become oral evidence, oral history. So I said 50 years later, people will forget. So I said that, technology is such an empowering tool. So you can just that 10-day yatra or 15-day yatra, you can record it and put it on the YouTube. So I said that the idea has to spread among a wider group of people in various manifestations. It's just not writing anthologies. Either you write anthology of your own area in your local language, prepare videos of traditions that are still being observed, which next 50 years we will forget. So I just want to say that I'm really very impressed by each and every piece of writing. And thank you for taking out the effort. And I'm sure this will create a wider impact than my book. And I just want to say one more thing. When I wrote my book, I was wondering that, because I don't have a support system in the sense that people are, a support system in the sense that I have intellectuals around me who are supporting me and encouraging me. So it's, one woman army. And so when you're alone, you don't anticipate what the reaction will be. So I was just thinking that when the book came out that, it'll be, people will say, what is this you've written? That's I sourced everything. But I was so shocked at the number of people who would meet me and they would know me because they must have seen my talk. Or they would recognize me and come to me and say that, ma'am, we've read your book. And my publisher told me that, the hardcover book is selling so well that we feel no reason to bring out a paperback right now, even 2-3 years after the launch of the book. And the book is not cheap by any chance. So there are heartwarming signs that things are on the mend. But now they need to be pushed because the enemies are also getting smarter. So that hostility, it's not that, Shubhra, don't laugh. It's not that they're just waiting to say, okay, you got converted to your viewpoint. No, they realize that our viewpoint, our works are making a dent. And that is something that they are very unhappy about. They cannot attack us, but if we don't press forward the advantage that we have made, I think we will be feeling in our duty. So congratulations to each one of you for remarkable endeavor. And I wish many, many more volumes come out from each of you for each region. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Meenakshi ji, for your wonderful blessings and encouragement. And I remember when before your book came out, I was watching one of your videos, and on the book, I think it was Sangam or somewhere, and
Yes.
As I watched, tears were rolling down my cheeks, and I was overwhelmed. And when the book came out and Harikaranji asked me to take this effort, I was just overwhelmed. So thank you very much for inspiring all of us and the kind of work you do. I know we are not perfect, but we are all trying to work towards it. And hopefully one day, now that reminds me of Professor Arvind Sharma's paper where he talks about insider and outsider tradition. And he says that we have reached the demographic threshold.
Yes.
Where we are trying to snatch that agency into our own narrative, and a lot of pushback that we are witnessing is because of that threshold being reached. So hopefully in the coming years we will have the agency. Right now looks like we are getting a seat on the table but still don't have the microphone all the time with us. But hopefully we'll get there sometime. And keep inspiring us and keep blessing us. And thank you very much. Pranshuji?
Namaste. Sorry about the earlier. So I had planned without the, Hari Kiranji's would have given that initial introduction, but it was a great, uh, inspiring speech by Meenakshi ji, especially the idea about carrying the, see, it's always that, so there's the old song from my childhood, and I'm not that old, by the way, is that Sathi Haath Badhana.
Yes.
And that is the idea, is basically passing the torch. It's always a relay race. And that's how basically it's a generational transfer, basically coming from there. And from the very beginning, when the first invasions came through. And again, as Meenakshi Jain pointed out, that we actually won so many of these initial battles. We never thought we were going to be in trouble. But then, as Govind Chandra's inscription follows through that, he realizes that there is a spot we are now going to be in trouble. But again, the very point that I'm going to bury you, Mother Durga, but you will come back. You will come back. And that confidence was also reflected in that inscription, and that was one of the things I liked about the book, your book, was the very fact that you addressed that Govind Chandra's inscription, considering that, and again, popular culture is where we have to bring in. Jayachand, in the various stories we have from Jayachand, and I'm from UP, so from the land of Allah and Udal. And Jayachand actually defeated Gori twice. So to now, basically, him being made into a sort of a villain by popular culture is something basically which is striking at the very root. The people who fought are the ones who are being basically made the villains of the piece. So this is and that's why these books, and then anthology, humanizing these incidents, making them personal to the user, taking your book, for example, and putting into a bite-sized, stories for the younger generation to consume, is the right way, basically, to go forward, and then take it forward a step more, taking like each, as Hari Kiran ji said, that every author is going to be a curator.
Yes.
So on its own.
Yes.
So let's start with the stories. And so again, as I said, I use the simplest method possible, which was the sequence in which the stories came. So it goes to nearly the start of the first major invasions, which was Ghazni's invasions, and Surela's story. Basically, it's a story about it's sort of it marries sort of the dream space which we have, the Sopan Bharat, with the past, present, and future, and so Surela, and it's of course based in Khajuraho, which was the headquarters of the ancient Chandel dynasty, which built such a huge temples, and thankfully, due to loss of roads or whatever incidents which happened, those temples got protected by the forest. Sort of the Mother Earth, sort of Mother Nature, came out and protected a lot of these temples in that area by making it difficult for the people to find it. And that's another part of it, like Madhya Pradesh, and if you go, the secret India, they call it, right? The heart of India is basically the forest came back in vengeance. And you see this story again and again, even in Mahabharata. Nal Damayanti, then Damayanti is traveling through the forest alone. She's reaching and she's finding these ancient ruins. So this is basically a very cyclic story. So let's start off with Surela and her story.
Namaste, everyone. I am Surela Chakraborty, a feature writer based in Kolkata. So a few years back, I visited Khajuraho, and I was mesmerized by the grandeur and the sculptures, exquisite sculptures engraved on the walls. So when I read Dr. Meenakshi ji's book, I was very, I was very taken aback. It was an eye-opener for me that only half of what should have been there exists. And that therefore, when I got the opportunity to write about write a story in this anthology, the Khajuraho temples came to my mind. So, I tried to, express the anguish and the trauma and anguish I faced reading the book, and also the information out there that the temples are lost. I passed it on to the main protagonist, Rahil, and I also burdened him with my unfulfilled desire of becoming an archaeologist. I gave him the burden of, to transmit, to protect dharma. And the other reason of why I chose the name Rahil is because he is a king, a very powerful king of the Chandila dynasty, and the predecessor of Yashovarman and all the mighty kings who were responsible of building the Khajuraho temples and restoring it. So I gave him the, I wanted to connect the past and present through this name and through his, the role he played as an archaeologist. And also, try to, explain the helplessness that he faced. We face the same helplessness. We can relate his helplessness because there's so much of confusion around us. There's so much of information, misunderstanding and lack of understanding that I try to, connect the present and the reality and the story there. And I believe this is where Meenakshi ma'am's work really plays a significant role, because she really helped to remove the cobwebs of doubt from my head, and also bring a fresh perspective about how this our culture, our Hindu dharma can be protected, and also the necessity of why it should be protected has to be emphasized in that book.
But your story was so full of pathos. It was so moving, I can't tell you. And disturbing.
Thank you, ma'am. But I also feel that I owe that to you, because you bring that pathos, and I try to, transmit that pathos through the archaeologist. And thank you, INDICA Academy, for helping me to see myself as a published author. As I see myself today, I feel very honored. Thank you, Avatanji, for curating this beautiful and well-structured anthology, and which is so rooted in reality. And also thank you, Harikiran Garu, for being so encouraging always. And I can only say that the very fact that you have chosen my story as an opening story, and that makes me very happy as an author, and it's my very first to be published in anthology, so it's extra special for me. I can't thank you enough, and I'm already waiting for the next anthology, to participate in the next anthology. So with that, I conclude. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sarela. So thank you, Sarela. And so from Sarela, from Khajuraho we will move towards a little west, but staying in the same area, to Nathdwara. And in 1672, when Aurangzeb's Farman went out to destroy the temples, Brijbhumi did what it has been doing for thousands of years, protecting Krishna. And so Dev Malya tells us the story. He's actually in Bahrain, and he's a construction engineering professional there. And he basically relates that the story of saving of the one of the 4 images which Vajra supposed to have created for his grandmother to remember Krishna by. So Devalya, over to you, sir.
Thank you, Prangshuji. Thank you, Madam Padmasri Meenakshi Jain ji. Thank you, Avatanji, and all other authors. Firstly, I'm immensely blessed that this amazing project is finally seeing light of the day. At the very onset, the story under the name of yours truly in this anthology is Srinathji's only, I'm just a nimitta or vehicle for his expression. How it all went about, when I first saw this post in INDICA, so I was actually in Bahrain, and I reached out to Avatansji if I can get a copy of the book. Unfortunately, that was COVID time, and the couriers were all not very regular. So I was told I can get a copy in India, but getting it abroad maybe it will take some time and all. I ordered one copy, and I mean, at home, my family is there in Mumbai. I went through the contents, and I somewhere deep inside me felt I must write something on Krishna. So I kind of highlighted the ones relating to Krishna, and told my wife, please, take photo in mobile and send me across, scan and send me across. I read this particular episode where Srinathji's image is taken to Udaipur, and on the way, like in Nath Dwara, there's a particular incidents happening, and how it stops there, and there the temple comes about. So I decided I would work on this. But unfortunately, I had never, prior to that, written anything like remotely close to something which is a historical fiction. So what I did is, I mean, kind of something I can relate to, like, in Bhagavad Gita, where Lord says, like, to look it as an yagga and offer the fruits to him. So it was kind of, I mean, I am not qualified to work on such a magnanimous and such a huge kind of a work. So this is your work. I'm just a vehicle, and let us take it from there. And several, actually, if I look at it minutely, miracles happen in the sense the research, the cues, the references came to me just like that, one after another. Even in the original version, this has been edited out. In the original version, I included Mewari dialect from that region, because I have expat communities here from Rajasthan, and who relate to Mewar. They send me, I send them the dialogues, they translated and send me back. For some reason, it was felt like it may be too heavy for a common reader, so it was edited out. But then the dialects also, I got it translated in Mewari, and I read through the full volumes of Rajasthan history of the time from British authors of the time. Like, I mainly wanted to focus on what are the flags the army would carry, what are the kind of weapons they would carry, what is the food of a normal soldier. So all those things, basically, I wanted to get as close to reality as possible. And I submitted it, and with a prayer in my lips, and the rest is probably history. I'm immensely thankful to INDICA, to the entire team who selected the story, Avatansji, Hariji, of course, Madam Meenakshi Ji, whose original volume formed the inspiration. So it is spoken through my story is related through the voice of one of the 100,000 soldiers of the Rana of Mewar, which actually took the image of Srinathji to safety. So it is all spoken about like autobiographically. And of course, I learned a lot going forward in the editing part also, from the editor, who was assigned from Stanford. So it was overall an amazing experience, and I would like to be associated with many more such, amazing, innovations and initiatives. Thank you. Over to you, Ransh.
Sir. So we will we will move a little more west to Multan, and the story by Kavita. Kavita, जैसे Krishna said, right? I, as human changes clothes, I change, body changes souls, Kavita changes professions, as she mentioned. So over to you, Kavita, and your story on Multan and the very idea that we actually burn ourselves at the end of our life, and so we actually go back to that soil. And so Kavita's story is very, very indicative, like it's literally representative of our culture as such, how we give it back to the nature, what we have received from it. So Kavita, on to you.
Thank you, Pranshuji. Namaskar, Meenakshi ji. I'm sorry, I can't actually do the namaskar. I'm holding the phone. I'm in a hotel room. Please forgive me for that. It's my great honor to be on the same platform as you. I've been a great admirer, great fan, reader. At a time when people would accuse me, I taught Indian language and culture at the State Department in the US, and they were probing questions from students about sati. So your book helped, and not just one, so many, and I can't name them. So you've helped me in many ways than one. And thank you, Avatansji, for coming out with this idea, because this call for anthology triggered in me to write a whole series on my Aradhya, Surya Bhagavan. Hanumanji bhi hain, unko bura lagega, but definitely Surya Bhagavan. So I wrote a whole series, and this was the first of it. And thank you, Hari Anna, for providing us a platform and for all of us meeting. And my co-authors, I have read all of the stories, and like Meenakshi ji said, I'm amazed at the kind of writing itself. And I was like, acha, aise bhi likh sakte hain, waise bhi likh sakte hain. So the creativity was amazing, the research was amazing. And coming to my own story, Multan Sindh, when I read Meenakshi ji's book, as Avdans ji said, it does a lot to you. You choke up, you get angry, you're distraught. And as Meenakshi ji said, you're agonized. And I study Vedanta in the Arsha Vidya Parampara. And when you're helpless, we are told you're never fully helpless. When you're helpless, you pray. That's also an action. So I said, "ठीक है, pray तो मैं करूँगी, वो तो मैं करती हूँ, but then something else I want to do, So then my way is, if we have to say, and pen has been compared to a sword. So for me, that was the weapon. And I was like, ठीक है, I kind of can write, so let me write. And also at the same time, I think a few years before Wrinkle Kumari's incident had happened, and I am particularly perturbed. Perturbed is a very soft word, angered, agitated by what is happening in Pakistan and Bangladesh today, in terms of how they kidnap girls, young girls, even married women, any female who's a kafir, and rape her or gang rape her and convert her because ye sawab hai. Matlab, this is good because you're getting more people into your fold in your religion. It really bothers me. And I wanted to, because Meenakshi ji's story, I had read Multan, and there was Mulasthana, there was this whole story of the beautiful Surya Devata mandir jo tha wahan pe. And I knew of Multan only as Multani Mitti. So just to connect the whole thing, to realize that is considered good for you, it has medicinal properties, and that Meenakshi ji's book told me, and it just did something to me. I said, bachpan mein mujhe pata tha ki lagane se acha hota hai, but I didn't know anything more than that. And to connect Surya Dev and the medicinal properties and the Ayush giving, life giving Surya Devata with the mitti, because now the temple is raised, it's no longer there. So, and with the contemporary situation in Pakistan, of course, Bangladesh also, but that's another story, another anthology. So when you read the news every day, it is so, each time I open social media, I'm like, I don't want to hear another, because it just does something to me. I can't sleep. Like Avtanji was saying, I cry, I feel upset. I put myself in that girl's shoes, and I'm like, how would I live if I was forced to live, anyways. So I thought, okay, I can pray definitely, but I need to do something about it. So I put the two together, because Multan is in currently Pakistan, of how it would be for a woman who had to undergo something like this. I made it very understated. It was my first story. I wasn't sure at that time when I wrote it. I was still in the US in the State Department, and I didn't want and we all, at least I live off of my jobs, even if I change them. So I need that security. So I was like, okay, how can I write it so I'm not kicked out of it? Ultimately, I was anyways, and I moved to, yeah. So I was like, okay, what can I do? So I made it very understated. Maybe it's for the best, because it for me, it brings out, a lot of women are silent. If you see them when they convert, they're so scared, they can't even speak. So maybe that was Bhagwan's way of saying that, haan bhi, aise hi karo isko. So that's my story. And the story is just a story. And I just pray that this horrendous situation for the women stops soon, and the international, whoever supposedly, people who cry out about human rights, listen to their cries. And for me, if even one girl is saved, I have to have done my bit. Namaste.
That's a very good description. And as they say, right, you have to go through a lot of valley of shadows before coming to the peaks of sunrise. So, it's going to take time. It'll always will be a method. It'll always be like, the fight will go on. There will be like 2 steps forward, 1 step backward all the time. So, but here is somebody who basically doesn't take steps. He actually moves his ship around, navigates his ship, and he's already familiar to a lot of readers of our history books through his books on Maratha history and Lachit Borphukan. So let me welcome Anish Kokle here. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. So firstly, I'm extremely honored to be part of this anthology, and it's a great honor for me to be writing this chapter as a note to the book by Meenakshi Ji. Also, earlier Meenakshi Ji had mentioned me regarding Maratha history. So yes, definitely I will work towards that, to get the stories and these tales that are be writing in English to a larger audience, to the people who can read and converse in regional languages, Marathi in my case. So that will definitely improve the reach of these stories. And in fact, in these cases, when you bring it out in the regional language, you could find a lot of stories coming in also from the villages and smaller towns, where they could have their own tales and stories going back 500, 600 years of their local deities and temples, which will increase our own database and our own knowledge of this kind of topic. So this book by Meenakshi Ji, Flight of Deities, is of course inspiration for this, and all of us must have read it. Others have also read it. Apart from this, even the other 2 books, that is the Fight for Rama and even the book on Krishna Vasudeva, that is the Krishna Jambabhumi. These are also very, very important books which have documented in detail the whole struggle that has gone into reclaiming Ayodha first, and now hopefully in our lifetimes Mathura also. In fact, Ayodha itself we felt was rather impossible, but that is already a reality. So we can keep hoping that Mathura and Kashi will also have the similar kind of court verdicts. Coming to my own story, which I have written here, that is on the invasion of Puri. Now, as you mentioned, one of my books is on Lachit Borphukan, and this also deals with Eastern India. Odisha is another province where the history of that province is not brought forward to the rest of the country. Our Mughal-centric, Delhi-centric history syllabus leaves out the northeast in one part, and also the Odisha, state of Odisha. Now, interestingly, we find that this place has been ruled by outsiders only from around 1568 AD. So you had Bengal being ruled, that is what is currently West Bengal today. From 1206 roundabout, they started being ruled by outsiders, by the Bengal Nawabs. But Odisha managed to stave off invasions for the next nearly 350, 360 years. But it also faced a lot of invasions which were aimed at the idol of Jagannath at Puri. And very interesting to note, and important to note, in fact, that these raids, which the secular crowd wants to keep claiming about being about the wealth of that temple and the capital present there, which they wanted to loot. So all these stories, all these incidences that I mentioned, they are specifically about attacking the deity itself. These are not about attacking the temples for the loot. The looting part was done. Even after that, the invaders went after the idols. So if it was not about the deities being desecrated, they would have simply stopped at looting the temple and gone back. That is not what happened. We find that the invaders chased the particular idol for miles and miles. In fact, through province, you find people have escaped all the way south up to Tirupati and Kerala after coming somewhere from north. And from Mathura, they have escaped all the way to Udaipur. They wouldn't need to do this if the case was just about the wealth of the temple. So this is where they were iconoclasts who wanted to destroy those deities, because once the deity is destroyed, the temple is destroyed. For example, you have the Konark temple. If you have been to Odisha, and I have been there actually, if you've been to Odisha, you'll find that Puri is a bustling pilgrimage town. When the actual Rath Yatra takes place, that town is absolutely chock-a-block. It is an economy that runs on that pilgrimage of Puri. Why? Because Jagannath idol is still there, people go to worship it. And the entire economy of Bhubaneswar and Puri runs on those pilgrimages. You drive for 1-2 hours, go to Konark, it's a tourist spot, because nothing else is there. It's a tourist spot, you can take a photo from miles away, look at the entire temple. And the reason is that there is no idol inside the Konark temple. The Konark temple idol, it is believed that the sun, Surya Devta idol in the Delhi Museum is supposed to be the original idol at Konark. Some people say that, some people say that it's completely lost, we don't know where it is. But the point is that the Konark temple is just an archaeological site, it is not a functional temple. And once you see the contrast between Puri and Konark with your own eyes, you realize the importance of the deity and the protection of the deity, as to how important it was to protect it and reinstate it again and again. And Puri saw these invasions not once or twice, but 18 times over a period of 500-600 years, where you had invaders attacking, and then somebody managing to retrieve the idols, hide them, go and worship somewhere in the forest, maybe in some other temple. Then that child goes away. Again, 20 years later, they come, reinstate the idols. Again, somebody is coming. Again, the same story repeats again. And so, what I was the point in this case is that there was a cycle of not just desecration and flight of deities, but also a resilience from the local populace and the kings, who would want to again go back to the previous status, where these deities had a prestige in the society. Moreover, particularly about Jagannath Puri, it was not just the deity or a very popular deity of that place, it was also the king of Odisha. We have certain deities across the country. There is another point where we have, your civilization unity comes through, where the rulers have said that we are ruling in the name of this deity. You have the Maharanas of Udaipur, who are having this view. I believe the Padmanabha temple in Kerala is also one of these examples. You have the Rama Mandir in Orcha, where Rama is considered the king of Orcha and everybody else is his servant ruling in his name. And similarly, we have the Jagannath Puri at Temple of Jagannath at Puri, where the kings of Odisha considered themselves to be servants of this king who was in the temple, and they are all ruling in his name. So when you attack those deities, obviously it was also psychological impact that the invaders wanted to make on the local populace. So I wanted to bring this story forward. It is rather not known. In general, the history of Odisha is not known, and in particular, people don't know that the temple at Jagannath Puri was attacked not once or twice, but even 17 or 18 times over a period of all these years. So, and it was only when that province passed into the hands of the Marathas towards the end of the 18th century that they had some semblance of order, and then they made grants and all this, which is a different topic. But it was again a great honor to be part of this project, and I hope to be part of many future such projects which can bring the true history of India to the people. Thank you.
I really like that you use the term 18 invasions. 18 is Katyapadi, meaning is dharma. And so, that basically also illustrates. And somewhere we needed to put in a book about devotion, the word the 18, the literally representing dharma. So now I would take it the pass the torch to Natkhat Nartaki. I was pronouncing it right. Aditi Gopinath. And her story basically. So over to you, Aditi.
Namaste, everybody. First of all, thank you to Meenakshi ji for bringing out this very important book. And also thank you to all the other panelists here. It's an honor to be on the same panel as you guys. I appreciate a lot of you as authors. So it's a big privilege to be on the same panel as you guys. My story is based on Sukha Bhatta, who is the minister of an iconoclast, Buchikan Sikandar. And I thought it was interesting that he basically betrayed his own people to support this iconoclast. So I wondered at the end of his life, what kind of fears might he have in his mind when he's facing death? So that was my story. I'm not very knowledgeable in the history of most of these accounts and everything. So I'm very thankful to Meenakshi ji for bringing out this book. I hope that more and more people will read this book and then that they will find it as enlightening as I did. I'd also like to thank Avtansji for getting this anthology out. I think it shows a lot of creative foresight that these historical accounts can inspire such interesting fictional stories. So thank you to Avtansji and the rest of INDICA. I hope everybody will keep reading Meenakshiji's book to learn about these great stories of bravery and resilience. Thank you.
And Aditi's story showcases Kashmir. So basically, that's another, where basically we lost a toehold and we kept a toehold and then we brought it back inside. So that's a very interesting part of this. We did cover basically from Kashmir right down to Madurai. So the next is Rajesh Ramachandra's story on Madurai. Madurai obviously being a very important center of pilgrimage of our culture, and therefore, there are several stories on Madurai actually in this anthology also. So Rajesh's story is about the Natarajan and Sundari and their fight to preserve the deities. So over to you, Rajesh.
Thank you, Ramchuji. Namaste to Meenakshi ji, and all fellow authors. To quickly introduce, I'm a IT technologist with a deep passion for Vedic culture, Indian history, Hindu religion, philosophy. However, writing a story is a new experience for me, but I embrace this with enthusiasm. My debut short story is The Will of Gods. It was inspired by Meenakshi ji's book, where there was a chapter on the desecration of the Madurai Meenakshi temple. I was surprised because I had visited this ancient temple a few times and was surprised to even discover that it had been desecrated. So Madurai was under the Sultanate for about 48 years until it was freed by Prince Kampana of the Vijayanagara Empire in the year 1371. In the last raid, the temple was conquered. There were about 3 raids on Madurai, starting from 1311 till 1323, before it could come under the Sultanate. Every time the natives of Madurai fought the invading armies. So that's the background of the story. And imagining a world where the fate of a city and the temple, the key magnificent temple, rests in the hands of a family of Hindu priests and a temple architect, and they had only one mission: to protect the sacred idol or vigrahas from ravages of an invading Islamic army. This is the premise behind The Will of Gods. It's a historical fiction short story that encapsulates the spirit in medieval times. It has themes of courage, sacrifice, and how people fought to preserve the cultural heritage. The third generation of the priest family succeeds in executing a flawless strategy, and they rescue the temple vigrahas with the assistance of the architect's daughter. So for me personally, the writing the story has been a very immersive experience. I've poured my heart, soul into it, did some research to bring the story to life. I'm very grateful for the opportunity to contribute to this anthology, to INDICA and Avatansji, and also to be present here amongst other authors. I hope the readers will find the will of God to be a captivating and thought-provoking tale that could further spark their curiosity on India's vibrant history. Thanks again to INDICA and Avatansji for the support, guidance throughout the writing process. I look forward to writing more and connecting more again in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajesh. So not only the authors, we have performance artists. So obviously, Aditi is a Bharatanatyam dancer, and Shubhra actually also writes about, has been writing comics, and she's a playwright and has been connected with the theater. And hers is the next story we'll talk about. So Shubhra, can you join us? Sorry, Shubhra. Okay. So Shubhra's story is about. Shubhra, can you hear us? So we might have lost her a little. We can come back to her. Let's go on to Deepaji. Deepaji also wrote about Madurai, and she has been working. I mean, she has got a very good book by INDICA already out on Agam, Shiva Agam, and temple architecture. So obviously, temples are very close to her heart. And so can you, Deepaji, please go ahead. And she also used Madurai as the backdrop of her story.
Thank you, Pranchuji. Namaste. Namaste, Meenakshi ji. Fantastic. Shubhra just came on. Shubhra, should Shubhra, I carry on? Yeah. You want to start? You want to start?
Shubhra, can you please? Yeah, Shubhra. So, are you? Will you be able to join us?
You're on
mute. You're on mute, sir, ma'am. Oh, I think.
Please go ahead. I can wait.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, fantastic. Namaste, namaste, Meenakshi ji. Just such an honor. It's such an honor. And namaste, everybody. Avatansji, INDICA, congratulations, my fellow authors. Fantastic. Like Meenakshi ji, you said, it's a labor of love, and for somebody to work individually, alone. You said one woman army. I can, I could totally identify. I could put myself in your shoes, because when you're doing this, you wonder, does it really matter? Because it matters so much to you, but, does it really matter to the world outside? But, it does. Everything has a time and place. And it now seems to be, one of the best times. They say it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And I don't know. But at least from one, aspect, it is the best of times, and there seems to be a renaissance. There seems to be a lot of awareness, and like you said, you've caught, our imagination, and you brought the revelation that the entire country. Somewhere we knew, everybody knew that obviously the South has so many temples. Where are the temples in the North? And somewhere people knew, but to document it, to give irrefutable evidence that, look, this is what happened, that's the collective heartbreak. So why Madurai? I remember as a child, when I visited Madurai, the first time. It's one of the great pilgrimage sites. Everybody should go. It's beautiful, it's large, and it is one of the places where The gods themselves were the king and queen of Madurai. Meenakshi, after you, Meenakshi ji, it's such a nice coincidence as well, and a tribute to you as well. And the Devi was born in Madurai as the daughter of the king and queen who begged Lord Shiva for a child, and she was born with 3 sthana, and the Ashariri said that when she meets her match, the 3rd sthana will disappear. Now she was raised as the princess, right, the next ruler of Madurai. So she goes around conquering. So here is, women power. So she goes around conquering, and she reaches up to, the North Kailasha, and she calls the, person down for battle. But the moment she sees Shiva, she realizes, her 3rd sthana disappears, and that's when the entire, like the masculine energy sort of dissipates, and, she becomes feminine, and she realizes he's the match. And then he says that, okay, now go back to your kingdom, and I will come ask for your hand. And then he comes, it's beautiful. Kanchanamala, the mother, is preparing her for, getting married. So that's totally different story. But this is an ancient story, which is not just a story, it's a way of life for people in Madurai. Even today, Madurai is organized around the temple. The city is planned around the temple. People live for, Sundara's and Meenakshi's, the wedding. And then there are utsavas where Meenakshi is oiled, and, her long hair is, combed and plaited, and she's lying down on the bed. And the utsavas of Madurai are so beautiful. Now, there is this, there is this living temple. There is this. And then when you go there, you see that on the corridors, there is a place where there is a Shivalinga, which is broken, which is like cut into 2. And like when you see the linga, it has the Brahma Bhaga, the Vishnu Bhaga, and the Rudra Bhaga. It is 8 and then 4, and then, like the circular, you can literally see inside. So as a child, I was curious. It's like, oh, as if, this is like a sample for people to see how it is made. But then I was told that, no, somebody actually, broke this. And that was my introduction to the destruction, that happened. So when I had to write, so that was the thing that actually, I went back to that. And why the stories, unfortunately, the stories that I use as back reference are facts. They are documented by no less than the traveler Ibn Battuta, the atrocities that happened. So the backstories to the characters, whatever happened to them, are all sort of taken from whatever happened in real life. The story of Madurai, everybody knows that they protected the deity the way they could, and then when they went back, the miracle of how it all survived. I wanted to also highlight the role of the priests, because when I went and did my PhD on, temple management in the Shaiva Agamas, what really stood out for us, today temples are alive. Of course, people, all of us, those who went before us have sort of, protected the temples, but the core, the people who are at the heart of it were the priests. They were the ones closest to the deities. They were the ones charged. The Agamas talk about Bhupadana. The Agamas talk about what to do when an enemy king threatens you. Everything is documented. And when you see the Bhupadana happening, when you see the deities being dug out from it looks like, exactly the same process was followed. So they were the trustees, they were the, and they were mandated to do this. But today, we look at priests on TV, on movies, they have, people make fun of their tufts, and people have like the image of the, pot-bellied, greedy, like sort of a priest who is just after money, who probably, take a few examples and then make like a stereotype out of it. So it's terrible that those who safeguarded our tradition for us for thousands of years, who've enabled the temples to sort of revive, like Meenakshi Jain ji was saying, what about the jatras? How do we know? We know because of the people, and we know because these people were said, okay, this community will be the priests. And today there's so much happening politically saying anybody can be a priest. It's not a job. If it's a job, some 13,000 people can be fired and they go home and look for another job, but They didn't go look for a job when guys, the army, the hordes of the Turka army came on horseback. They got their heads cut. They sacrificed their families, but they protected the deities. That's not a job. That's not in the job description. They did it because it was their life. It was their dharma. And you cannot say, I will bring some, management and administration to the temples, and I'll say, I will hire people, I will get your bio data, and I will say anybody can become priest. This is not about caste. This is about creating people who own it, who belong to the temple. And the temple, sort of belongs to them, not in terms of a possession, but as part of their life. So I just, I really felt very strongly about, how we treat the people who actually, do this. So I just wanted to tell the story of, of the priest, and also this dichotomy of such a young boy. They prepared their children to go ahead and do this, even though there was no hope. The temple lay in ruins. There was no hope, but they transmitted knowledge. That's why we have the knowledge today. So, that's the motivation. Thank you so much. And I just wanted to end on one note where Meenakshi ji, you said, we should record the stories that happened today. Even today, as we speak, Sirgari, the excavations have given us so many copper plates with Trinyana Sambandars, Devaram, fresh Devaram, which we've not seen before, that has come across. Near my house, I know of an atheist who bought a land belonging to a political party. He got a land, and this is real story because I've seen it in front of my eyes. The deity came to him in his dream. This is 30, 40 years ago. The deity came to him in his dream and said, I live in the land, in your land. Now you have to build me a temple. So he dug, because he was building a house, he dug up and he found a shivling. And he was a changed man. From the atheist politician, he built a temple. It's right near my house. He did the Kumbhabhishekam. And, this is something that you see in front. The deity speaks, not 1,000 years ago, not 2,000 years ago. The deities speak even today. And that's why we are here, because, it's a living faith. It's a living tradition. So congratulations, everybody. I'm so honored. I'm so inspired. Thank you so much, Meenakshi ji, again, for inspiring us to do this. Thank you, Indika. Congrats, everybody. Vande Mataram, Jai Hind. Namaste.
From Professor Deepa, now back to the student Shubhra. Shubhra, yeah. You can join.
Hello. Hello, everyone. Apologies about the mix-up here. First of all, thank you for including me. And it feels really great to be here amongst the Dr. Meenakshi Jain, whose work has been the inspiration for all of us. I just wanted to say that the thing that spoke to me, that made me want to write the story, was a simple visual image. And that was about the tree where the deity was being hidden. And that visually struck out to me, and it made me want to explore that. I also wanted to say that I appreciate that you mentioned Dr. Nagaswamy. I was not as lucky to have met him, but I have read his works, and I wanted for the idol and actually getting the idol back for us to be a play, because I'm a theater artist, I'm playwright, and that is my preferred mode of writing. But your work was so inspirational to me that I wanted to be involved in any which way. So I took upon the idea of writing the short story. And I feel that to me, the work for all of us who are writing historical fiction is immense, and it has sort of just been there. There hasn't been enough, because I keep seeing stories that are not well packed. Here we are sitting with a scholar who has done immense work.
Shubhra, can you pause your video? Just do the audio, because you're cutting off.
We have the privilege of leaning on it and then get inspired. If this kind of work can happen with foreign, yeah, I'm so sorry. If it is it better now? Is there continuity now? I can move. That's hello. Can you hear me?
Yep. Yes.
Hello.
You can just stop the video.
Yes.
Yeah, that's better.
Okay. So I just just carrying on from there, I just wanted to say that I appreciate being part of something which does have that scholarship, which does have an opportunity for us as creatives to have that, to draw from it. I don't have much to say about the research because I was leaning upon what was in the book. I am not a researcher myself, but I am interested in writing stories that are based on that. I tried to do most I could using emotional depiction of what could have been happening at that time, of what could have been going on in the mental state of the people that were involved in the story. Those are the things that I went into because those are the things I feel people respond to. People who don't respond to a lot of research respond to emotion, they respond to stories. And anyone who doesn't believe that stories are kind of leading today's world, narratives are leading today's world, that this is the truth. That is what is happening right now. So to me, our work is important, but also this scenario is quite important and significant. The scenario of having scholarship which backs creatives and creatives who draw into it to present our work in a way that is available for the general public. So thank you for that. And thank you for including me. And I hope that I can go further and do what I actually do, which is create plays. And I visualize all of this, in my head, I can dream that this can become like a web series or like series where we actually see these come alive, because that means more people can see it. That means getting the word out further, getting people curious enough to then pick up the book the way I did. And I'm just happy that today is here and I'm able to be part of it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. So
Something
there have been
Can I add something? Pranchji here. Sorry to interject here, but I really feel honored to be in the same platform with so many lovely writers out here, and also Meenakshi ji. And thank you for making me part of this narrative. As Shobra was saying, that to make it more emotional and to reach accessible to all. Like Meenakshi ji's art work is well known in academic circles and among non-fiction writers. But the very fact that fiction it has been presented in the form of short stories has been making it accessible to short story writers, and also I am feeling very honored to be part of this narrative. And thank you, Otis, and thank you, Hariji, again. Thank you, Vatanji.
So there have been news now that they are actually writing Mughals out of the history. But so I would not like that to happen, because my story is actually about the last days of the Mughal, or last days of the Mughal Empire as it crashed around it. So many years ago, we were stuck during incidents in Meerut. So I was stuck inside the house for 10 days. We could not go anywhere. So I started reading the whole of Mahabharata from the beginning to the end. Around the same time, I got the hold of Todd's Annals. And in Todd's Annals, there is actually a couple of lines mentioned where it's a very typical Rajasthani tale that, the emperor was actually out in Kurukshetra, and he basically saw an issue basically with like he was getting the lakes cleaned, and they found a huge bajuband, and that bajuband had 13 interlocking shivlings on it. So imagine and they were crystal, and they were all of them very weighty, about a couple of pounds each. So there was a local chief's wife, and she interpreted the story is that during the Battle of Mahabharata, a chief picked up the arm of Bhurishava and dropped it in this lake, and this bajuband is what is remaining of that. So and immediately the emperor was like obviously impressed by it, but he basically thought of them, these are very heavy stones and I can use them as slaves of the carpet. The carpets in those days, to keep them on the ends of the carpet, they used to be basically, you would put stones. And obviously the Hindu kings there, the Rajas, were disturbed by it, and they basically wanted those icons. But as a Muslim king, he could not give them openly to his Hindu subjects, images. So, but this was a story Todd collected around 1710. And he was living in 1822, and he saw those icons. He saw those images. I mean, I have seen Nili Chhatriwale temple in Delhi. One of those 13 icons are there. So they were in Girdhari Mandir in Jodhpur, Sitaramji Mandir in Jaipur. So these icons were actually eventually. So I basically made up this. So I said, how did it reach from where Todd says that it was put in the Mughal Toshkhana, the treasury, and how did it went into these temples, 30 new temples obviously constructed around them, new temples for the new era. So this was my story basically. So I married the idea that if Pandavas had gone into Virat and Matsya to steal the Matsya treasury, how would they do it? So I used the idea of Agyatwas in that context. And obviously, I mean, I'm from Delhi, very much familiar with all of Delhi's history. A lot of that period of obviously from around 1700 to 1740 is very well documented. So, and even later. So basically, I had a lot of feedback. But the one thing I wanted to emphasize in this story was King Sawai Jai Singh. Sawai Jai Singh built Jantar Mantar across 7 different towns, cities of India. This was astronomical instruments. He's called the scientist king for that reason. And he used his position to start creating these new temples. Not only the new temples, but he created the new scientific apparatus. And that was something very new. And another thing which people don't highlight, and again, it's part of the history, how we are taught and everything. In 1,000 years, the first Vajpayee Yagya was done by him in 1707. That was actually the trigger point for the Badshah to actually go to Kurukshetra, where he found his Bajuban. And then later on, for 12 years, we don't know why, for some reason, Jai Singh did not inaugurate. He set up the city of Jaipur. He built it according to the Dharmik, and he recruited people from all over the India. So there were craftsmen from Karnataka, from Tamil Nadu. There was the architect was from Bengal, and so from they had brought in. Taimur had taken away a lot of architects thousands of years ago. I mean, around 1398 to Afghan. What they were living in Afghanistan. He brought some of them back, and they constructed the city of Jaipur. But for 12 years, he did not do anything about it. So there are these lacuna in history. So that's where my fiction comes into place. So I said he basically was waiting for collecting all the 13 icons. But obviously the story is going to be longer. So I chose one part of the story, which and again had a lot of moving parts. There's the story of course, Santaji Bhosle, Shivaji's brother. He was part of that invasion in 1719, that incident in 1719 again. So so that's how I structured my story. I married the story of concept of Mahabharata into the actual events. And most of these characters are actually real. The cook is actually talked about, is a cook actually in the Mughal stories. Daud Khan Panni's famous cook. The lady Vichitra is actually the foster sister. Vijitra Meena, she was the foster sister of Jai Singh. Jai Singh himself is there. So that's one of my homage was to basically this era of Indian. And this was also a period where we were coming out of the 50-year, last 40 years of Aurangzeb's horrible ruinous administration. And this was a time for rebuilding, and there was actually rebuilding on. But at some point in this is the area where we should learn this story, because we lost the way again. And then it went immediately downhill with the British coming in, and then 100 and the destruction which followed, or the cultural sphere as such. We lost our voice literally in that. And so this was a period where we had a chance to get it back, but we somehow lost it. And that's why it's a very interesting period to me. And I really like Aditi's, Aditi is not here, Aditi Banerjee. Her book, her hero is also, her king is also Jai Singh. So we both actually have the same character who's sort of not looked upon, who's not identified in our list of great Indian kings.
Thank you, Pranshu for moderating this session, and thank you for telling your story, from your perspective. I appreciate it. That reminds me, there are so many disconnects in our lives here, and it reminds me of Professor Kapil Kapoor, my teacher in JNU. He always says that we are all victims of our modern education system, and the victim part is that that disconnect, that what lies in the popular culture, and what we are taught. Because I remember when I would come back from school and tell my Dadaji about something, and he'll say, "I know," and I would say, "Oh no, what does Dadaji know?" And now I am here once I do my research, and all the stories that Dadaji will tell me about freedom struggle and all that were all true, and not what we learned, not everything, but a large part are just the narratives. Anyway, thank you very much, Pranshu, for bringing your story to us. There's a couple of questions here, so if you have questions, please post it in here. I don't know if Meenakshi ji is still here, but there's a question for her where Kavita is asking just to shed some light on the way you did your research, what went through your research, what kind of effort. And so if you could please kindly briefly summarize the process of your research, that'll be great.
So that's the only question that I will take. Is that all right?
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. You see, the process of research, it's a very individual kind of journey. And the process depends on the subject. The sources that you look for depend on the topic. For example, I think somebody talked about my book on Sati. So that was something that I could never anticipate when I began this, because I used to hear children, in every textbook, it would be saying that Lord William Bentinck abolished Sati. So, this William Bentinck was presented as a great savior. And I had at one point, done a compilation of foreign accounts of India. And there I found that the foreign accounts were actually very few. So that set me thinking that from the time of Alexander till the 18th century, you can count the actual instances of Sati by the inscriptions and by, monuments that were erected. And there were very, very few. How is it that a custom that was there but was very rare, how is it that in the 19th century we hear of thousands of women immolating themselves in one province of Bengal? So, that set me thinking. Then I realized how it was a missionary propaganda, because they wanted the right to convert in India, which they did not have. So they said, this society is full of evil. And the evil that they thought would really appall the home audience was the burning of women. And it is so surprising that in Europe at that time, women were being burnt as witches. But that did not, arouse the indignation of missionaries. So, the journey is very different for each topic. So the journey that I took for this flight of deities was very different from the journey that I took for Sati. And the journey that I took for Ayodha was very, very different. And to give you one example, because there was a reference to my work on Mathura. Mathura was actually the easiest to document, because when you're writing a book for an academic, as an academic, you have to show that your sources are sources which are recognized as authentic sources in the academic community. So what are the sources that are recognized? Epigraphic evidence is very important, because inscriptions have a particular date, or you can, date them. An inscription which is inscribed 2000 years ago, you cannot say that it was made yesterday. So, that gives credibility to your work. And the inscription, and on Mathura, the Archaeological Survey of India, it publishes its journal Epigraphica Indica. And this Epigraphica Indica was started in the colonial period. So all the findings that they found in Mathura over the course of decades, they listed those inscriptions and they translated those inscriptions. So you have the inscription in the original language, and you have the English translation, and you have the interpretation. So none of this work is done by a modern scholar. So you cannot say that you're imposing your own biases and prejudices, because this is done before these debates came into the open.
Agenda was in place. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, many of these people would say, that they would try to say that Krishna is a myth. But the point is that there is reference to Devki Putra Krishna. First reference that we get to him is in the Chandogya Upanishad. Now the Chandogya, yes, Chandogya Upanishad is one of the oldest Upanishads. It's very difficult to date it, but it can be 8,000 years ago or 9,000 years ago. And the Chandogya Upanishad talks about Devki Putra Krishna. Now in the entire journey of ours, we don't come across any other person known as Devki Putra Krishna. So it can only be one person. And it also tells us that Devki Putra Krishna's guru was this person. The Chandogya Upanishad mentions Devki Putra Krishna's guru, and then it tells us what he learned from his guru. And it is absolutely amazing that the teachings of Krishna in the Gita are so similar to what he learned from his guru. So, why should the Chandogya Upanishad mention Devki Putra Krishna? Why should it mention his teacher? Why should it mention the teachings of the teacher? And why is it later that Krishna teaches those things? And the epigraphic evidence, it mentions, it's the first epigraphic evidence we have is before 15 Common Era. Because 15 Common Era, it mentions a ruler in that period. So 15 Common Era, that ruler, his rule ended. And it talks about Vasudev, Devon ka Dev, the god of gods. And so all these things, you have to put together, you have to look for evidence, and it becomes archaeology is a very great tool. Epigraphs are very important tools. I'll just make one point, archaeology. After this inscription was found at Katra Keshav Dev. And sometime later, there was excavations done at a mound by Alexander Cunningham. And there he came across 2 male torsos. And art historians all over the world, India and abroad, were unanimous that these 2 torsos were the torsos of Sankarshan and Vasudev. So, there is a plethora of evidence. And I can say for myself, when I start a project, I'm absolutely ignorant about it. So, I get fascinated because everything that I discover is a joy for me. I don't go to a project with any I know nothing about the subject when I started, but the journey is so joyous because everything that you find, it strengthens what you think should be the story. And in every case that I've studied, whatever the Hindu civilizational memory was or is backed by what we find on the ground. So, I'll have to leave. Thank you all for the tremendous work that you did. Thank you for being here. And it was lovely to hear your stories. And I'm so glad, Avtans, that people are saying that they look forward to the next anthology. So you have work set out for yourself.
Dhanyavad.
Thank you
Yes,
so much.
excellent.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Meenakshi
Thank you,
ji.
Meenakshi ji.
Good
Thank you,
night.
and
Good night.
Shubhratri.
Shubhratri, namaskar.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you, ma'am.
We will
Delight to
continue
meet all
for
of you.
another few minutes. We
Yeah.
will continue for another few minutes. And, the continuing with Meenakshi ji's last comment is, I'm reminded of, I think Sadhguru, he says that knowing is the end of knowledge. Not knowing is tremendous potential. So with that said, I have a question here. I think Deepa already touched about it, about the reconsecrating some of the temples that don't have the Vigraha there anymore. And the question says, do you think it is time we begin to enliven our temples where the structure stands and there is no Murti because it was destroyed? And this is from Vijay Lakshmi. I think, one of the things we have to do is as a precondition is take some of the temples from Archaeological Survey of India, because it's a Government of India property, and make it a community property. Then only we can have that, reestablished or reconsecrate those temples as mandir, living mandir. Does anybody else have a comment on that?
Yeah, so ASI, for example, like Konar, right? So the structure is so fragile. It's exposed to the sea right there. And so the structure is so fragile, they actually filled it with sand to let it remain it. So what in situations happen is, for example, what we did with Somnath, right? Somnath, the temple, which was the remnant, right? The remnant which was not allowed to be worshipped, though the British allowed some worship around 1840s. The problem was that in that period, that about 100 years since that point, when the temple, the remnants, there was some worship going on, it had degraded even more. So what they did was, when they created the new temple of Somnath, they actually moved the original temple away from there, and then they created a brand new temple. The same thing with ASI is, like, for example, Hampi. You talk about all these great monuments across Hampi. The problem is, if you convert them into temples, you will have footfall traffic. And there is the whole logic behind it, why they don't immediately convert it, because they will attract. Yeah, go ahead, Kavita ji.
Ji, exactly to the point you were saying, Prancha ji. Most of you have been to Cambodia. In Angkor Wat, what I saw was the Apsara is acronym for something like the ASI, which looks after, as you know, the temples. And you would have remembered that the yatris who go there, especially the Cambodians themselves, they take agarbatti, they take flowers, incense, everything, and offer worship. And the guards are happy. They do not interfere like here, ki bhai nahi kar sakte. So I'm trying to understand, why do we have this colonial mindset in the guards themselves who are guarding it, that chappal pen ke log jate hain Hampi mein. You've mentioned Hampi. So it's so tragic that there is footfall. People are visiting these temples, but with chappal, with no respect, all kinds of people not thinking of it as a holy or a sacred space. Whereas in Angkor Wat, which is equally ruins, except for one or two where there are deities, equally ruins, but the locals are very mindful and they're very devotional. There's so much bhakti. Unko dekh ke mujhe sharam aa gayi. I was like, my God, look at this. This is also like, these are ruins, but look at the kind of bhakti, and look at the guards who are actually very happy that they bring all kinds of things to worship, fruits, sab chhod ke. And right now I'm in Trivandrum, Thiruvananthapuram, last point. And in the museum here, there is a small miniature of Ananta Padmanabha Swami, and opposite is Chitra Tirunal, jo pehle jo Maharaja the yahan ke, last Maharaja. Women, I just saw one woman, but I've seen other flowers. That was the proof. So chota sa platform hai, and they were quietly putting, flowers, doing namaskar and going. So there is devotion in us. And there are people who allow this is still in a sense a Travancore state, in the sense of the people who accept that. So it's acceptable by the guards and everybody, but why not in Hampi? So that's all I want. And
That's
other
again, see, that's where basically the government, right? Whoever is, and there's also the idea of the petty bureaucracies, right? That guard will say that this is my demesne, I'm the मैं यहाँ का ठेकेदार हूँ, to say it, and that sort of the attitude is there part of it. As you said about Cambodia, I totally agree. But you see, what Cambodia went through was every Cambodian has lost a family member, a very close family member, through Pol Pot. And his idea was the destruction of it. So that's why they now basically went through that horrible tragedy, which we can't even imagine. And so that's why there is a huge level of devotion and respect for the things which are been there in Cambodians, because they went through that horrible.
Why do we forget that we went through as much?
And we have also gone through the same. But again, that's it. Because there, everybody can name a family member who went through it. Here, 100 crore.
No, and then also the same issue that we have been victims of our education system and desensitized for if not thousands of years, but definitely generations about these traumas, and we have been so far removed from this that mainly due to our education system, that we don't feel that. But quickly we can say, we have to as a society, as a community, come up with these kind of situations and solutions. We can declare for example, the entire Hampi area can be declared a Dev Bhumi or Dev Kshetra, something like that, and then we can go from there. So I know this is a topic that we will have to deal with it, and our next generation will have to deal with it if this renaissance continues the way it is. I have another question here, is that this is an amazing, from Deepak, this is an amazing anthology that brings out sad stories from our history with hope in it. I would be interested to know how the authors research this story, especially the story of Mughal last day and the Madurai. So this is a specific, something general, something specific. I would let the people who are associated with the specifics take this question, and if you're willing to answer.
So I basically, I live in Delhi. Thankfully, a lot of information is available. We at Bharati Vidya Bhavan actually did a very good job of chronicling that history. Satish Chandra, he wrote a very interesting story, not basically कहते हैं ना, तख्त भी हैं, हाकिम भी हैं और लश्कर भी हैं, उनको तलाश करें जो मशाल लेके चलें. People talk about the kings and the thrones and everything. So Satish Chandra talked about the officers of the Mughal Empire. Jadunath Sarkar translated everything. There used to be a daily Akbarat published by obviously as administration, like Government of India tells out as circulars, that thing. So Jadunath Sarkar, basically, she translated everything available. So all that thankfully was available to me. And of course, Majumdar, A.S. Altikar and all their works. So most of my research came from there. Obviously, Colonel Todd was the kick point. And after that, when I try to do research, also gazetteers, as Dr. Meenakshi Jain was talking about, from 1850s onwards, a lot of the princely states, as well as the various districts, they were tasked to create gazetteers of their districts, in which you would find amazing descriptions by the local, these are like people, like local officers, local magistrate. He basically goes around and does the whole comparison, collects the local stories, and those are collected in district gazetteers. So you would find the temples to people like you would not have heard of Shri, who gave to Sharp to Parikshit. So you basically find temples in the Jind State's district gazetteer, which actually maps out where Parikshit must have gone to get his curse, and that's where Takshak bit him. So that temples are there. But those temples are not very famous ones and everything, but they were thankfully captured by that magistrate, and he put it in the Zin district gazetteer, and these are all available online. So that's another very important source for us, is a lot of information is available online, especially University of Toronto. They basically have sort of imaged a lot of these, transcribed a lot of these to digital format, and it's available free to everybody to do the research. So now, you cannot argue that there's, earlier I used to go to wait with my sister. She had to find time. Then she would take me to the American embassy library, and then I would go in, and then 1 hour I was given, and then I would basically till she does her work, and then I'm out of it. So now we have so much available that the research wise. And as for Madurai, we have obviously Dr. Deepa and Rajesh.
Yes, Deepa and Rajesh, would you quickly like to add something? We are running out of time, so just the last question.
Rajesh ji, if you have something to say, I just wanted to say to the previous question that there is one bit of good news from, in fact, the king, the current, the regent of the Vijayanagara dynasty. He is called Krishna Devaraya ji, and in a recent conference called Kshetrayanam that was organized, he was one of the chief guests, and he presented what he is doing now with Hampi. And exactly to what Vijayalakshmi ji said, that he's trying to revive worship there, ritual worship there, and because he's been ordained by his guru to restart worship there. So I just wanted to share that one bit of great news. I was so happy to hear, and I really hope it happens. And yes. And so on Madurai again, like for my temple management thing, I'd done a bit of things. So I was already sort of immersed in that world. And one extra thing, like the small bit of information, there's a bit of, there's a thing of the Neela Pataka, right? The blue jewel that Meenakshi still wears that Neela Pataka today. Yeah, in many utsavas, the utsava vigraha, different situation, different thing they wear. I love it so much, and I wanted to sort of introduce it in some place. And apparently, the queen wanted to. She heard so much about it, and she wanted to see it, and it was sent to England for the queen to see, and then it was sent back. I hope it was sent back the way it was, sent to her. But she still wears it. Ganga Devi, the wife of Kumara Kampana. She followed him into battle, and she wrote Madura Vijayam, which is available online on archive.org. The entire battle scene and everything, how she was asked by her guru, and the role of the gurus, to say that, okay, when you go, like, revive the temples. So I think the Kshatriya and the guru, like the win-win thing that they were playing with each other, they were teaching each other. So that, is something to note. So yes, everything is available. The inscriptions are there, the South Indian inscriptions, when the consecration happened, when all this happened. There's so much to learn just from there, and the rest is all masala.
Yeah.
Our trademark.
It's great.
Yeah.
I loved your story. It's great.
Thank you.
Actually, I'll tell you
It
about
also
Kumar
reminds
Kampan.
me. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead. This
No,
is Kumar
and also
Kampan.
just-
Yes, I was telling you about Kumar Kampan. So in our Puranic history, we say that in the previous Manvanta, Chakshur Manvanta, there were these 5 brothers, the sons of the Manu, the world conquering, and their nephew Atyarthi Jananpati. Then in Mahabharata, you again come across that 5 brothers and the nephew, one of them, Abhimanyu, right? And then again in establishment of the Vijayanagar, that idea was sown in that 5 brothers, Harihar, Bukka, Madappa, Malappa, and Kampan, and their nephew Kumar Kampan. See, this is a sort of also, part of our cyclic nature, that how we basically, emphasize Kumar Kampan and his deeds. And that's why Madurai is still alive.
Yeah, and I quickly wanted to mention, since Pranshu was talking about those in the Toronto Library, Government of India also has a project of manuscript, digitized manuscript project. It's called Namami National Manuscript Project, and they have 10 million manuscripts, digitized format. And I know it because Professor Kapil Kapoor used to tell, he told us, because he was involved in it. And so that's another source of that. So I think this brings us to the close of our, we would love to continue, but I know in India, a lot of people are getting ready to sleep. It's late. And so I quickly want to thank everybody for being here, all the authors and all the participants who are here. I will also want to thank Professor Ramesh Raoji and Mike Thorne and Otis Hetchenmeyer for, it took us a long time to go through the process, almost 3 years to bring out this anthology. And, when the announcement went out and stories started to come in, I went through all of them. Not all made it into the anthology. So we had to filter out some. And then once we selected, then we went through, all of us went through together with the workshop to polish those stories. Because one thing you will realize if you go through this anthology is we have a variety of authors. There are some very already experienced published authors, and there are some who are first timers. And when Hari Kiranji came up with this proposal, the idea was also to give a lot of new authors, because we are expanding our ecosystem. And so you see a variety of authors with variety of experience and different genres, different experiences. So we went through all of that, and a lot of people helped us through that process. Professor Ramesh Rao, definitely, he was one of them, and Otis again. And final editing was done by Mike Thorne, and we would like to thank him also. So, and I thank you, all of you, for persevering this process. It took us a long time, but here we are. And it's, there are some errors, there are some shortcomings, and all are mine. I take full responsibility for all of it. And we will continue to modify. We will continue with this journey. This is not the end of the journey. This is the beginning of the journey. And I hope that we will continue with this journey together at a larger level. And I also would like to thank my INDICA USA friends here, colleagues Nishant and Ram. And finally, also a big thanks to our team in Hyderabad for providing the logistics, going through the whole process of setting up this session. And Pranshu especially, because he put together a lot of things in preparation for this launch. So Pranshu, I appreciate all your help that you have provided. And Hari Kiranji, he is the founder of INDICA, and he is the soul and brain and resource behind all of us. He doesn't always like to be out in the front, but he's always behind every effort that we take. And I personally want to thank him from not just inspiring, but being with us all throughout this process. So thank you very much. Thank you everyone for joining us. Namaskaram. Good night, and have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Avtans ji, for making this happen.
Yes.
Thank you, everybody.
All to me.
Okay.